Once upon a time, a young butter was playing and loving the Battlefield games, and as time went on, he found love for a little thing known as Warhammer. And then the young man grew. And now that I am an older butter 100, I'm in love with Warhammer, of course, as you can tell from this channel. But now I've been thinking, and not just me, but others. What if we took those type of games and made them 40K? Because if you look at Star Wars Battlefront 2 and you look at 40K, we could make something work here. So let's get into that. So today I want to open up your minds to the journey of thinking about this type of game and that it would exist and how exhilarating it would be. And that I literally have like dreams about this game existing, and it'll probably never exist. But I hope one day a Star Wars Battlefront type game that is 40K themed will exist. It would probably be one of the first pre-orders I've ever done in like ever. As long as I can remember. So let's get into the gameplay of this sort of thing and how it would actually function at its core. Well, of course, we know this sort of thing would start off like a Battlefront style game. You would have your basic classes, assault, medic, recon, and your supports and stuff like that. Very simple, classic Battlefield style where every class has a role to fill. And I feel like that would also go very well with the 40K setting. Every sort of guardsman faction or something like that has a role to fill. They're either better at something than another, or they do everything evenly. Just like the Astartes themselves, they have a specialty. And those specialties could really show through the characters in their classes themselves. I mean, being that third-person camera with a heavy pistol bolter in hand, playing as a commissar officer, telling people what to do would be absolutely amazing to me and is a dream gameplay experience. But I think something else it should take from this is definitely 100% the special system that was in Star Wars Battlefront 2, like how you could build up enough points and play as a B2 super battle droid. But before I go any further, I want to say absolutely for this style of game, there would have to be many liberties taken. Like, not everything can be lore accurate to have a fun, let's just play around type game like this. Some people I feel would want it to be very lore accurate, but this isn't a lore accurate thing. Like, yeah, in Battlefront 2, a little droid isn't going to be hitting the Dougie on Anakin Skywalker after blasting him 500 times and taking him out. But it still happens. And I think that's one detail that actually makes those games so fun. If you have the skill to do it, you can do it. Like, I don't expect a guardsman to suddenly just start pulling 360s on Abaddon and winning. But I would love to see a Kriegsman pull a 360 on Abaddon and win. That's why I want this game to exist. Do you understand now? All you hear is muffled gas mask laughing. I would love to also see the implementation of the sort of Battlefield style Battlefield 5 revive system. I don't know if it's just me, but I thought it was good. I thought it was fun with the animations and getting people up. Imagine you just whip out some weird chemical stim, almost like the one from Darktide right now, and you just inject your friend and he starts screaming and stands back up. I think the implementation too of the Battlefront style dodge roll would be fun to have in the game. I mean, it gives even the little guy some chance while being attacked by everything around him, which is kind of epic. I think if they got the team that's been designing and working on the weapons for A, Darktide, and B, Helldivers, that group of people working on a Battlefield, Battlefront style game, so even in first person, those reloads look... He counts the revolver ammo. He counts the revolver ammo, and it's beautiful. But I don't think there needs to be much implementation of realism mechanics in there, just to keep it more light and fun. Now, I am thinking of the implementation of a perk system in this sort of game, but at the same time, I feel like a perk system also, yes, adding more flexibility to the game, but also kind of takes away from the evenness of games, I feel a lot of times, especially in these sort of games where I feel as if it gives the other player a massive advantage over others just from picking the right thing, or it would cause instant meta. I know it's going to happen no matter what with vehicles or weaponry and that sort of thing. There will always be a meta, but I feel like this is a way to reduce it and make it more of an even playing field. Or we implement a sort of Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3 type perk system where, yes, you take the perk, but you have to stay alive and get enough done long enough to actually get the bonuses from those perks, and they're more of a reward for being good at the game already. So if you're already dogging on people, you're gonna keep dogging on them harder. That's enough about me ranting about this sort of light mechanic tweaks. You all already probably know the gameplay of Battlefront 2 and the gameplay of Battlefield. Just make them have a baby. That's pretty much what I'm saying. How about we get on to the second most important thing I think there is in video games, and that's the maps.
Thank you for 77,000 days.
Now, before I get into the details of what type of maps I would like in a game like this, let's go over how the maps should function in the first place. Because there's certain maps in a lot of games, or especially PvP games, where one side of the map, people start over here. The other side of the map, people start here. But the maps will be different on one half of the map, and the other half will be different. I hate that in PvP games. I actually despise it because it's not balanced. Because just a slight difference in a movement in an object can make an entire team of people get to a place an entire second earlier. Hell, 3 seconds earlier than the other faction or the other army. And that's just not fair. You have to remember that most gamers still don't look up. So if a direction to get to a certain area is a little weird, people just can't get there and it takes extra time. So I truly am adamant about PvP maps just being a copy and flipped over to the other side, because I genuinely think it just manages better and just works better. So if people are getting stuck on things over here, people are getting stuck on things over here as well. And I think it just works. But now that that's clear, let me give you some ideas for maps. So the first thing I was thinking was like an ice world, an ice planet. But I'm thinking very large ups and very large downs on this map, almost like a mountain. I think there should be a lot of open field, no man land type areas, followed by a lot of bunker underneath or in this like type of mountain scenario. I think that would be really cool, having to go in and out with all these corridors and stuff. So there's a lot of like holding, almost like old school Battlefield 4 locker room type areas. But then at the same time, you get those nasty, and I know a lot of people don't like these, but like those nasty sniper areas where you need to pop smoke to get through them without being mowed down by an LMG or some sort of sniper. So you actually have to think and strategize about where you're at while the enemy team is trying to do that as well. Thinking about those things and being able to strategize, and especially with your squad, I think would be an extremely fun type of map. Hell, when there could even be like that halfway through the game sort of event thing that happens, a big storm rolls in that kind of takes out everything or makes it really foggy. So even those outside areas for a minute are kind of just free to roam, and people can use that sort of storm to hide in. The linear areas become even more linear for a little bit after that storm until the snow can kind of dissipate and go away. Or maybe you have to blow up those entrances now, kind of alerting people to where you're at, but at the same time allows you to get through because you've already had the advantage of sneaking through the storm itself. There's a lot of different ways a map like this could be taken. And another thing I love about the 40K setting and when coming up with the fictional planets and stuff like that is that you have to still remember that most of the planets in 40K aren't discovered or have never been shown, which means we can just make a new planet. I mean, they did it for Dark Tide, and they do it a lot for the 40K games themselves. We just make a new planet, and it allows for whole new experiences. But I know people want to see reoccurring planets. Oh, and I'm looking at my notes here, and for number 2 planet, it just says Catachin Jungle Map. Hell yeah. So Yeah, we all know how a jungle map is going to work. We already know the imperialist army is going to be a bunch of Catachin warfighters. What about a Catachin devil that just goes through the map? Or maybe that's the halfway point hazard on the Catachin map, is that a Catachin devil just comes through the map, cuts down a bunch of the trees, destroys it. This living bullet train just comes through and takes out half the stuff. And now this very concealed jungle map has a lot of areas that are real open. I'm getting really passionate about this now thinking of it, because Catachin map, hell yeah. God, that would be cool. Maybe like at one point of the map, sort of towards the center, there's like a little ravine or river that's open that people can cross through. Of course, if you were actually on Catachin, that river would probably murder you in 2 seconds because of some sort of weird thing that would blow up your internal organs. But for gameplay's sake, you'd be able to go through it. I think this one's going to be also a little favorite, and I would probably be my favorite as well, besides the new idea of the Catachin one that was absolutely baller. But it is a Death Corps of Krieg, of course, trench warfare map. Now, I've played a lot of games and a lot of big PvP games like that have trench warfare maps. And I can't say I've never not enjoyed a trench warfare map. There's just something about running around like a little rat in these trenches that is always just so fun. And I think doing that with your tactical battle shovel as a Kriegsman would be absolutely a baller. I think it would be an amazing experience. And in the far off distance of the map, you can see knights and chaos knights fighting each other and blowing each other up. Oh, it would be good. The Kriegsman runs into your trench and he goes, "Ooh," which means, uh-oh, I just dropped 5 melta bombs at your feet and I'm coming with you. There's just always so much potential for a trench warfare map if done right. And I think last but not least, one of my other ideas is give me an underground hive city. We've already seen how cool an underground hive city can look, but take it to a gameplay sense, and that's your close quarters map. There's got to be one like pure close quarters map. This is where your SMG speed freaks and shotgun users are going to shine, and they're just gonna only play that map. But you know why we need the close quarters map and why we need it is because that's the map where you unlock shit. That's the XP grind map. We all know it. Put in an underground hive city, the giant rotating fans where you can barely see the sun, that sort of thing. You don't really know what that is. You don't think it's rain, but it could be something else and you just don't want to think about it. But absolutely tight alleyways, grungy, dirty, dark area. Maybe this is one of the darker maps where you have to bring a flashlight. I think it would be weird to have a Warhammer game like this and not have a map or two that is really dark and grungy and nasty. Of course, like most things are going to be grungy and nasty, but an underground hive city is pretty nasty as you can get sometimes. And like, it doesn't just have to be tight alleyways and stuff. Hey, hell, buildings you can go through and stuff like that. Give us some building warfare. Because even though it's tight areas and tight alleyways and stuff like that, there can still be a lot of buildings you can go into, and there should still be the layer of the first floor and the second floor so people can get around. Hell, sewer drain, the tunnel, but they're small and you have to run around through them. Ooh. Okay, now I actually really like the idea of this. I think I've talked to you enough about maps. Let's get on to the things that will actually be running around those maps, the armies and the hero characters.
Blood for the blood god! Blood for the blood god! Blood for the blood! Was that the bite of 87?
So armies and hero characters. So that whole Battlefront 2 thing is coming back around. But I think first, before we focus on those, we should focus on the little guys, aka your guardsmen. There's gonna have to be a map with Cadians. I think like GW is like there legally has to be Cadians. I don't know why. There just has to be every time. But people love the Cadian Guard. That's no hate towards the Cadians. I love them too. But I'm like, let's mix it up a bit. But I'm not going to do that just yet because I already mentioned a trench warfare Kriegs map. So of course, Kriegsmen. Love me the Kriegsmen. So of course, throw Kriegsmen. And I mean, we already have designs for their ranks. You can have your officer, your support, your guy, your assault troops, your sniper troops. I mean, they're all written down already. And that's why I think, or this type of game wouldn't be actually that hard to make because they already have a hierarchy written down and manuscripts for it. All you gotta do is read. And of course, the jungle Catachin map is going to have the Catachins fighting. If it was on the planet Catachin, and the main Imperial force for that wasn't the Catachins, everyone would throw a riot. There would be bloodshed on our hands. Like, it would get bad. But now I'm thinking of this ice planet that I had talked about. Who would go on this ice planet? Who would be perfect for that sort of situation? Who doesn't get a lot of representation in 40Ks? That's one of the drippiest guardsmen faction there is. And then it hit me. The Vostrovian Firstborn. Listen, I know there's not a lot of lore on the Vostrovian Firstborn, but what they do have is absolute drip blessed by the God Emperor himself. And there you go. There's your army for that place. It just makes sense. Every map could pull from every different type of guardsman regiment out there. There's an absurd amount of guardsmen regiments, and that's why a lot of them don't really have that much lore. So those people don't get a lot of love, but I feel like through a game like this, they could get a lot of love and especially introduce a lot of new people to those regiments and to those factions. I mean, right now with Space Marine coming out, a lot of people are starting to learn about the different Astarte chapters and their chapter masters and stuff like that and what their colors actually mean or represent. And, you know, it'll go on into their Primarchs and stuff like that, but whatever, I'm ranting. But I think it would be very fun and fit a lot of people's need of wanting to be the average guy, the real hero of the Imperium, a dude with a flashlight. Because I don't just want a game that's just going to throw people and be like blowy uppy, even though that's what this would be. It's a Battlefield style, Battlefront style-esque game. That's what this would be. But I think with every army and every type of skin you can get for those armies, there should be little lore tidbits. So the people who want to know can know. But another thing I would like to see that's also connected to the whole guardsman sort of thing is actually introducing a ton of people to chaos regiments of guardsmen. They're chaos guards, right? The Morbian people and stuff like that. There's a lot of chaos guardsmen that are super interesting, but rarely ever talked about. And understanding how a normal person can shift to chaos and stuff, but putting it in this sort of game as just like, of course, it's just the opposite team because you want a humanoid shape for your characters. Both teams should look humanoid. So it makes hitboxes easier and stuff like that. And it's the same problem with a lot of the Imperial Guard legions. There's absolutely tons of Traitor Guard that have very little to almost no lore, that are really cool in concept, but just not used. But besides that, and besides our Guardsmen regiments and our Chaos Guard regiments, let's move on to the hero characters. Now again, this is the part where lore gets thrown out of the window for game's sake, but I'm thinking for Imperialist special characters, the Assassinorum's right there. Think about it. I mean, hell, a special character could be so simple as a very strong psyker that can just block bullets and las lasers with their brain. I mean, hell, give a psyker the Titanfall, grab the bullets and throw them back ability. Things like that. Like, you could just have crazy characters running around. I don't want Sisters of Battle to be a special unit because I want a map where I can play the Sisters because they're the sisters and they're like the coolest faction in Warhammer. This one's hard for just special units because there's so many things that outclass a guardsman because that's what you're playing as normally. So like anything above that, which is like 90% of things in Warhammer, could be a special unit. Like, I could just go for another 5 hours on this video just on this topic. Like, that's the thing. That's why I'm like, it's such a good idea to make this game, because there is practically endless opportunities and imagination that can go into it. I almost forgot. Jetpacks, motherfucker. Jetpack troopers. Copy and paste that and put it onto the chaos side. There it is. Jetpack guy. Boom, done. It's that simple. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be some like real lore accurate type thing or just be crazy. It can just be a dude who has an extra item. I mean, you have to remember in Battlefront 2, one of the hero characters was a fucking Ewok. Was a damn Ewok. So it's like you can really put anything and just go, that would be fun. But now we get to heroes. And this is where it gets a little bit crazier, because I'm not sure in this sort of game, just because of height difference, there should be Primarchs running around. Everyone else is a 6 foot tall human. And if Vulcan shows up and he's like 12 feet plus tall, it's just gonna look goofy. It's insane. And then, like, maybe, yeah, you could find a way to do Primarchs, even though they're absolutely ridiculously sized, which means you would have to kind of fit the maps. I think there would be a way to make it work, but it would have to be a lot of test and play. Like, yeah, I want to play as Vulcan. Yes, I want to play as Lehman Russ. Yes, I want to play as Perturabo and stand there and get angry about everything and be like, I hate everyone. But I mean, there's plenty of named characters, human size or a little bit taller, that are named characters that could absolutely be used. There's so much lore and so many books and so much to go off of that it couldn't be that hard. But enough about the armies and the Primarchs and all that jazz. It's probably heard hundreds of times before. I'm going to get to one of my favorite things in these Star Wars Battlefront or these Battlefield type games, in the 40K setting, especially vehicles.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Fine, thank you.
Oh my god!
So how I'm going to go through this is we're going to start with land, then go to air, then go to water. That's pretty much how I want to do this. For the Imperial factions, and here's how it's going to be too. If it's on the Imperial side, just slap a bunch of rusty spikes and skulls on it and put it on the Chaos faction. Like, there you go. Now everyone has equal vehicles and they work the same. I don't like it when one team has different vehicles than the other, because that means one is always going to have better vehicles. That's a problem. I'm saying maybe knights. I absolutely love knights, but knights might be the same problem with Primarch heroes. They might be a little too big, especially certain knights. So maybe we do just stick to our tanks. You have your Baneblade, of course. Your heavy hitter, probably the most expensive one, is going to be the Baneblade. It's an absolute unit. But then you're gonna have your Lehman Russ tanks. And of course, the Lehman Russ is going to be your smaller but faster sort of tank, more of an infantry killer, where I feel like the Baneblade should act more as like a tank destroyer type tank. But, you know, when armed properly with enough men, it can absolutely take out plenty of infantry because of all of the turrets it has on it. The one thing I don't like in a Battlefield type game or the Battlefront type games is that when tanks become too strong and they're able to just kind of go in and win, there needs to be a nice balance of can deal enough damage but can't just run in mindlessly and survive and just blow up everything. It has to be timed properly. It has to work properly. Now, what I would love to see with these tanks more than anything though would be a sort of, not exactly upgrade tree, but being able to swap out the weaponries, like the different type of cannons, because there are models like that in 40K where you can swap out the guns and stuff like that on it. So it has different uses. The one tank I want to see the most, and I don't even know if it would function good or be balanced, I literally don't care. It's the Sisters of Battle church organ tank, where she is just rocking out, playing church music while shooting missiles out of it, still to this day is one of the craziest tank designs I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It's absolutely absurd, but it needs to be in the game. And then you can just make the Chaos one look like a Mad Max vehicle, and it would work just the same. And of course, like, that thing's got flamethrowers equipped to it. So yeah, again, armed with a good enough team of people, the thing's gonna last, or at least try to last. Now, I know this one doesn't really fly too much on the Imperium side, but I would like a heavy artillery type tank. And what better than the Nurgle like Plague Burst Crawler? That thing is literally designed to just launch things over and blow things up. And I think having some fucking weird artillery-esque tank would be really fun. Probably super annoying, actually, now I think about it. But for the person in it, it would be fun. And this is another thing with like the whole heroes or the whole like special unit sort of thing, is that there's so many different of these tanks. There's tanks literally for every faction, and not just like one or two. There's like 50 per faction. There's a lot, and not just factions. I'm talking literal, like, Grey Knights have their own tanks. Normal Space Marines have their own tanks. Mechanicus have their own tanks. Sisters have their own tanks. Chaos Legions have their own tanks. Everyone has their own tanks. There's too many, but absolutely as well. You have your normal medium armor transport vehicles. You're going to have your light armor transport vehicles. You're going to have everything. What is it for the Guardsmen? The Turox? It's a rapid deployment armored vehicle. It's literally just a deployment vehicle. You bring that out. There you go. There's your transportation vehicle. Sky superiority. What sort of planes are there gonna be, or what sort of jet plane like things are there gonna be? Now, I've never been a big plane fighter in like the Battlefield type games and stuff like that. That's never really been my shtick, but I know some of you out there love this sort of thing. So I mean, like, what are you gonna have? Well, of course, transportation air. A Valkyrie. Easy. Anyone who's played Dark Tide knows what a Valkyrie is. Anybody that read like a half of the 40k books knows what a Valkyrie is. They're just like the go-to Imperial transportation ship. But I bet people are going to want something a little faster, a little bit one-person jet plane style thing. So I done a little bit of research because I actually learned that I did not know much about aircrafts in 40k actually. So we're gonna go with something that has a little bit more speed, a little bit more attack fighter plane. I've learned of the Avenger, which is apparently just a light fighter that's supposed to fly low and hit people on the ground real quick. Very dive in, dive out sort of situation. But I think that plays really fast to like, or really good to the light, I want to destroy infantry sort of thing. And I think that would just work really well in this scenario. Or they could go with the one that's just straight up called Lightning. I don't know why they named it Lightning, but it's the same sort of thing. It's a little heavier, but it's meant to just like blow people up on the ground. Speaking of blowing people up on the ground, though, there is the plane that is the Marauder Bomber. It's a bomber plane. It doesn't really get that much more complicated. It's just a bomber plane. And again, to make this equal, put the same thing on the Chaos team, slap some spikes on it and skulls, and then here you go. It's Chaos. Oh, and paint it like black. You got the bomber. It's a bomber. It bombs. Like when you actually start researching this and going through like the different tiers of like, oh, well, you know, heavy, medium, lightweight sort of vehicles and their purpose. It's like the Lightning, the Avenger, and the Bomber. There you go. That's all the air in the game. Of course, you could add tons more, and maybe there could be a special one that's like one of the Space Marine air vehicles or something like that. But like so far, it's like that covers practically most things. Oh yeah, plus the Valkyrie, which is transport. Sorry, I wouldn't leave that out. I know. And then like there's someone who's probably very obsessed with air superiority of the 40k universe. So if you have ones that would be like perfect, you can yell at me all you want. But also, the more I go to look at it, there's not really many, which is kind of good because it keeps things recognizable. But at the same time, like, there's a huge variety, but it doesn't really matter. Air superiority, pretty quick, pretty easy thing. Now, water. Now, I don't know if the game should even have water-based battles, but an aquatic planet could be really fun. But water-based vehicles can sometimes be real tricky. But you need your like jet ski, and you need your like medium class fast boat that can have more people on it. and then you need your like armored fighting boat. We only need 3 to get the job done. So let's talk about those 3. There are like no pictures to any of these, so we would just have to like make them. But what I have found for your light ship, you're gonna want something called the sea skimmer. I guess I'll just put like a shark or something, or like just random boat JPEGs on the screen in the background, because there's not really much I can work with here. But you got the sea skimmer. It's like a faster cruiser boat apparently, and it goes zoomy, it go boomy. Apparently it has a lot of fuel, and that's like the description for this stuff. Boats kind of got the bad end of the stick, but it makes sense when they have literal fucking spaceships everywhere in 40K. So a boat doesn't make much sense. It just doesn't. Like, I legit think that the orcs have more boats than the Imperium, which in a way makes sense, unless you want to just bring in the World of Warships Cross of Dorn, apparently, which was a thing. Yeah, there ain't much. I mean, a vague description, and anyone with real talent on that sort of stuff could take a vague description, of course, make an artwork off of it. That's how everything begins anyways. Make an art piece off of it and then go from there and make it a thing. But like, I don't think I should go forward with it if there's not really that too much of a description or anything like that, even though this is just all me blabbering about a fake game that doesn't exist that I want to exist. Besides that, I hope that this video got people's brains working and thinking of just a fun little dumb concept of a game that I absolutely thought or should exist. I'll probably see it when I'm 50 years old or something though. But I hope it got everyone thinking. And if you want to add some sort of hero or something like that, comment section, baby. Like, if you think of some other fun mechanic or something different that could be done, absolutely, I want to hear it because I want to discuss it. I think this is neat. I was like getting passionate about it because like, something like this would be like childhood dream of mine, you know, like something like that. That's kind of how it would feel just coming into existence. But if you like that idea or something like that in that premise, I'd love to discuss it in the comment section. But I have little gaming vids and I have other little Warhammer vids. So if you're big on Warhammer, that's probably why you're here. Go check those out. The little gaming ones I just make for fun, but I think you'll find them hilarious if you just give them a little shot. But besides that, have a good day and bye.